Call the meeting to order of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority for July 1st. There are no items from the chairman. Are there any citizens to be heard? If not, approval of the minutes. The approval of the minutes of the Cotpa board meeting of June 3rd.
Move approval.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting of June 21st, 2016.
Move approval.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's early. Approval of the minutes of the Transportation Committee meeting of June 29th. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the consent docket. We have 5 items on the consent docket. Are there any items that need to be pulled for individual consideration? If not, would there be a motion to accept the consent docket?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, items for individual consideration. First item is the approval of grant award agreement with Area-Wide Aging Incorporated for senior transportation services. Jason?
Yeah, so item 6A, as you mentioned, is the approval of our grant agreement with Area-Wide Aging Agency. Cotpa is pleased to be able to provide the transportation services that we do for senior citizens. As you're aware, we provide trips to congregate meal sites, shopping trips for seniors, non-emergency medical transportation, and all of that is available due to the arrangement that we have and the partnership we have with Area-Wide Aging Agency. So this is the second year, actually, of a 4-year grant agreement. As you'll note, the grant award is for $277,570. And just to give you a sense of what we're able to accomplish in the areas of transportation with this grant, through May for our shopping trips, we were able to provide almost 11,000 shopping trips, over 19,000 trips to congregate meal sites, and over 2,700 non-emergency medical transportation trips. So we look forward to continuing those services, and this grant agreement is what makes that possible.
Is there a motion to approve item A?
Motion to. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 6B is the approval of the final acceptance of contract with W.L. McNatt and Company for elevator modernization for the Santa Fe parking garage and place maintenance bond into effect. Corey?
Good morning, everybody. On July 15th, myself and staff inspected all 4 elevators, the mechanical rooms. All elevators are 100% functional for the past 22 plus days. We did have, the period would have been longer, however, the cables in one of the elevators stretched, which is natural. It's a natural process, which brought an elevator down so we can make those adjustments. But we would like to put into place the maintenance bond.
Okay. Are there any questions? There's a motion to approve and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Thank you. Item C is the approval of the bus system change eliminating link service effective August 1st, 2016. Jason?
Yeah, just some background on link service. We've been looking at our link service now for several months. As you're aware, the link service was established really as primarily like a stopgap type transportation service when at the time Cotpa had no other transportation other than typical Monday through Saturday, fixed route service during the daytime hours. So Link is a service that we provide. We refer to it as a point deviated bus service. which basically means rather than the drivers following a fixed route, they have certain locations and certain times that they will pick customers up. At the same time, there's the flexibility for customers to be able to call in and make reservations and have a driver of Link actually pick them up at a location of their choosing, as long as we have the capacity that's within that service area. So when we're looking at Link is a very limited service operating from 7 p.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays, and it's within a core, kind of the core area of Oklahoma City, so it's a very limited area. At the same time that we've been seeing ridership declines on the Link service, we've also been adding service on our fixed route, in particular the new night routes. And so we're in a situation now where we have some duplication of service between some of the designated Link stops and the stops that are being served by nighttime fixed route service. In addition to that, as we've monitored ridership for Link over the last several years, we've seen a steady decline in ridership. In fact, we average about 40 trips during the week, and we average 40 trips per night during the week, and then 79 trips on Sunday. And to give you a sense of the direction of that ridership, when we compare this year to last year, our Monday through Friday service is down again about 8.9%. Our Sunday service on Link is down almost 20%, 19.7%. So what we're seeing is we're seeing some declines in ridership. There's some alternatives now on Monday through Friday that we didn't have 2 years ago. And so in light of the budget reduction that we needed to make this year, we really evaluated different services. We looked at options to reduce our budget without having to eliminate service, but eventually did have to start looking at where can we make some cuts on the service that we're putting on the street. We identified Link as the service that we're recommending be eliminated, and the reason for that is just simply because it impacts the least number of customers that we have. And it's we never want to make any type of reduction in service if we can keep from it. But in this case, we're recommending moving forward with eliminating this piece of our service because it impacts the least amount of people and allows us to maintain all the enhancements we've been able to make to our fixed route service over the last few years. So with that, we do have a recommendation to eliminate that service beginning August 1st.
Are there any questions or comments?
Jason, would you mind speaking to the community meetings that you all had, outreach regarding the elimination of this service, what the feedback was that you received?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. We did have 2 public meetings, one on June 12th, one on June 22nd. In total, we had 8 in attendance between those 2 meetings. And we received, I believe it was a total of 8, maybe 9 actual comments from those meetings or through the email. So we received actually, just a very little amount of feedback from the proposed elimination of the service.
Like I say, we would be excited that someday we could look at the Sunday service for the whole fixed route system as a replacement for what we're eliminating there.
Correct. And in fact, from the public meetings, that was some feedback that we received was, more night service and exactly a robust Sunday service.
Was there a motion? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, item D, the approval of the Cotpa fiscal year 2017 operating budget. Jason?
So the budget comes to the trust being approved by the Finance Committee last week. We had a pretty thorough discussion during the Finance Committee meeting of the budget and the different changes. I would like to hit just a few of the highlights. I'll point out that our total operating budget for all parking and transit services combined is $36.8 million. This does reflect about a 4.9% decrease overall, and as we look at some of the detail, you'll notice that the decreases are on the transit side, and we actually have an increase in budget on the parking side of our operations. So if you look at the attachment that's provided to the item, looking at the second page of that attachment, you'll notice we have the transit operating budget broke out, and so I can talk about each one of the enterprises just for a few minutes. On the transit operating budget, you'll notice for FY 2017, our total budget is $26.9 million. This is $2.3 million less than the previous year, or nearly an 8% decrease. And as mentioned earlier, we did look at our budget. We looked at areas that we could reduce without causing impact to service. Unfortunately, link service was one of the services we had to reduce in order to close that budget gap. But I am pleased to report, again, that this budget, we believe, will allow us to continue providing service at the levels we have today with our fixed route, including our new night service, continue to maintain our paratransit service, as well as the services I mentioned that we provide to seniors. So with that, we'll look at the parking budget next. Parking budget on the next page is $8.7 million for FY 2017. You'll actually notice this is an increase in the overall budget of $495,200, or about a 6% increase. And this increase does reflect the rate increase that the Cotpa Board of Trustees approved effective September 1st. So again, overall budget is $8.7 million. And I would just direct your attention to the very bottom line on the expenditure summary there. You'll notice that we do anticipate with this budget still being able to add about $2.7 million to reserves in the parking operation next year. That's after all expenses and debt service. So we're still in a very good position on the budget, which we need to be with all the capital projects that we have that we need to do. The next page is the river cruises budget. To talk briefly about the river cruises, you'll notice the budget for FY17 is $900,870, or about a $77,000 decrease. This decrease is for a couple of reasons. One, you'll notice we're receiving less funding from the River Authority. They did provide some budgetary support for marketing of river operations. And then you'll also notice we trimmed back our operating revenue. And basically what we did is we adjusted our operating revenue to be more in line with what we've actually received. This year we actually over budgeted our operating revenue a little bit, so we've trimmed that back for FY17. So overall, again, the budget, $900,870, or about I believe it's about a 7.8% decrease. Looking at the final piece of the budget, the Spokies operation, no change to that budget at $222,155. So I'll be glad to answer any other questions about the budget.
Any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2017 operating budget?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving to item E, the approval of the Cotpa 5-year capital plan for the fiscal year 2017 through 2021.
Yeah, every year we take a look at our capital plan. This capital plan that we have presented to the Board of Trustees today covers the time period of the fiscal year 2017 through fiscal year 2021. Again, this plan is updated annually by staff, and then every other year we participate in the overall city process for the capital improvement project planning. The attachment that you have to the agenda item will detail out some of the various projects. I won't go into all of them. Most of the projects you're going to note are very familiar. They were in last year's capital plan, and that's because they're either ongoing or we haven't initiated the projects yet. But you're going to see projects such as bus replacement, improvements to the transit center. We have some funds in there for improvements to the South May location. So again, lots of familiar projects. I will point out a couple of changes, rather significant changes. And starting on the transit side of the operations, if you'll look at the CNG station capital project, we have revised the overall projected budget for that project to $3.5 million, up from $2.5 from last year's capital plan, and that's primarily due to what we've learned our needs are going to be now that we've engaged an engineering firm to help us begin designing that facility. And we do know that we're going to have to make more improvements to our shop facilities to work on the CNG buses than what we had originally anticipated. With that said, you'll notice that we do have a funding plan in place to address that, and to cover a portion of that overage, we will allocate additional funds from our next formula grant to help offset some of the increase in the CNG project. Looking at the parking operations, you'll notice for FY17 we actually have $4.1 million of capital projects programmed. Those are two main projects. One is the Sheridan Walker parking garage improvements that we've discussed in parking committee now, at least on a couple of occasions, and continue to move forward on. And then the remaining is for the improvements we would like to do at the Santa Fe garage to enhance the tenant space over there. So overall, if you'll look, the total 5-year program is $31.7 million. I'll point out that all of FY17's projects, the projects we plan to do this year, are funded. That leaves us with about $11 million of projects over the next 5 years that are unfunded, and the majority of that is in bus replacement. Looking out to the 2021 time period, you'll notice we have an unfunded bus replacement need of about $7.5 million. And that's when the 15 2009 Gillig buses that we're operating today will need to be replaced. So I think we've done a really good job of addressing the 18 that are past the useful life now. But looking to 2021, we'll have some more challenges. With that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions about the capital plan.
Are there any comments or questions about the capital plan? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Item F is the approval of request for proposals for modern streetcar operations and maintenance services, and authorize the administrator to advertise and release the RFP. Jason.
With the streetcar mainline construction beginning, or planned to begin here at the end of the calendar year, and operations scheduled to begin in the fall of 2018, we have been, as a staff, been busy standing up the operations for the streetcar. So even though we're still quite a ways out from when revenue service is to begin, there's still a lot of tasks that we're already in process now performing in order to prepare. Things such as branding, working on our operations plan, developing some of our safety plans. So we're trying to get as far out in front of a lot of these needs as we possibly can. And so one of the things that we've been working on over the last probably 7 months is really looking at our operations plan and the different organizational models, working with our consultant, Rick Gustafson from Shields, Oblitz, and Johnson, who we've engaged to help us with streetcar operations and management. And we've been looking at those organizational models and the different service delivery models, really trying to figure out what's the best way for us as a service provider to approach the streetcar operation. So we have Rick with us today all the way from Portland, and he's going to share a presentation with the trustees to just kind of update on what we've been working on and our recommendations moving forward.
Get my quick instructions. Good morning. I'm Rick Gustafson with Shields, Roblets, Johnson. As Jason has indicated, preparing your operations plan and your organization plan. So this morning we're going to discuss the organization proposal and seek your approval for authorizing the RFP for a private contractor to operate the system. To start with, the streetcar alignment has been set. It's ready to go out to bid this summer and will be under construction for the next 2 years. There are 2 lines planned, the Midtown Bricktown line from Midtown to Bricktown, most of it in blue. And then the Bricktown Loop is a second line that is provided directly in response to the location of the convention center, providing then direct access to Bricktown from the convention center in both directions. So you'll have one line operating the Midtown Bricktown line and another line operating the Bricktown Loop, which will provide the full circulation services in the downtown. To remind you, the system is very innovative in that vehicles will use a battery system to operate in the downtown without overhead wires. That's caused by the need to have no wires under the railroad there at Gaylord and the hub. But by continuing the off-wire performance in what's in the blue and the green indicated areas of the route, the train will operate without overhead wires. Then overhead wires will be placed in the red lines, and that's where the batteries will be recharged and able to run all day long on wire and off wire. The service profile recommended is the Midtown Bricktown line would have 3 to 4 trains operating. With 4 trains that you can achieve a 10-minute frequency, and with a 3-train operation, you can have a 14-minute frequency. And it anticipates that during the peak usage times, you'll operate at 10-minute frequency, and the off-peak periods, you'll operate at 14 minutes. And a lot of that is dictated by the demand. The Bricktown Loop is planned to have 1 train operating at 15 minutes. And both are planned for Monday through Saturday service. But we are, as a result of the recommendation of the Transportation Committee, will include an option to have the private contractors bid on providing Sunday service, so that you'll have an idea of what the cost of Sunday service would be in the event that you wish to add that to the service. And the Bricktown Loop service is anticipated to be more responsive to the level of demand. You have opportunities for special events, the conventions, other things that may command more service than what you've planned. And there is a provision to have your ability to add service and add additional trains if you need to. The plan generally at this point anticipates 25,000 hours of annual revenue service, with Bricktown Midtown line taking 20,000 hours and the Bricktown Loop 5,000 hours. The anticipated total operating budget for the streetcar is $3.6 to $3.9 million. We looked at 3 options for you. The in-house operations, with it basically being a department of Embark. The management contract, where a private contractor would be retained to manage the system, but the employees would actually be employees of Embark. So that's a blend of using a management contract and in-house employees. The third option then was a turnkey private contract, where there's the management and the employees are all employees of the private contractor. And Embark becomes solely a contract administrator. So we evaluated those three options, used this evaluation criteria to assess which organizational option would work best for Embark. What we did do is compare it with what other new streetcar cities are doing in the United States. And what you have is a list of cities that have actually made decisions as to how they're organizing their service. Most of these are opened. Some have planned openings very soon, but have already gone through the process of determining what type of operational organization they'll have. And what I'll point out to you is that the cities on the right are the ones that chose an in-house operation approach. And all but one of them already had rail operations in their community. And they incorporated the streetcar operations within that current experience they had. The cities that didn't have that direct rail experience in their jurisdiction all have selected the private contract approach to start up their new systems. So that was an additional analysis we conducted for you. The recommendations that we've prepared for you today is first for the board to adopt the turnkey private contract approach. Second is to then authorize an RFP to be issued for a turnkey private contract. This approach has been successfully undertaken by Embark in the past, both for your ferry service and for your bike share program, where you have a private contractor who operates it. The scope of work, the RFP is drafted, and the scope of work is outlined in the request for proposals. Essentially, the summary of the responsibilities that are attached to that are that Embark would have responsibility for the contract administration, the budget, marketing and customer service, fare enforcement, and fare equipment maintenance. The turnkey private operator would be responsible for the operations, the training, the vehicle maintenance, the electrical maintenance, the right-of-way maintenance, the platforms, and the safety programs. So the schedule, the hope is that we can issue the RFP in July, receive proposals in August, bring to you a recommendation for a selected private contractor in November. This mainline construction is anticipated to start in December of 2016. That we would then continue the negotiations of the contract and bring a completed contract with the selected private contractor to you, so that a notice to proceed to the private contractor could be issued in February of next year. That's followed very closely by the arrival of the first car to Oklahoma City from Brookville. And then the maintenance facility will be completed later in October 2017. That will be the responsibility of the private contractor to occupy and to maintain. In January of 18, they start directly. The work up to January of 18 is preparation of all of the necessary materials and so forth with you, such as training approaches, et cetera. And then they begin training and hiring employees, preparing for the start of revenue service in November of 2018. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions?
The presentation was very good, thank you, but it's more directed towards Jason. If we could go back to the previous slide that kind of showed the time frame as to certain events. Yes, so in April, we'll receive the first streetcar vehicle. By then, how much of the track will have been completed to where we could at least see that moving along the track line? Do you know, Jason?
Yeah. I don't believe there's going to be any track completed at that time.
Okay.
In fact, that's one of the things we're working with the map office to determine is where are we going to temporarily store those vehicles, or that vehicle in particular, until we have track. And really, until the maintenance facility is finished up in October, and the track on Hudson there hopefully is complete, that's likely when we would actually be able to move the vehicles from wherever we're storing them to the track and then into the maintenance facility.
Do you anticipate at the track by the maintenance facility will be the first portion of the track to be completed?
Yes.
And will that be where the construction begins in October of, let's see, December of 16?
You know, I'm not sure that that's the exact place it will begin, but I know that it will be towards the front of the project. We'll want to get that piece of track done as quick as we can in order to, again, be able to offload the vehicles and store them in the maintenance facility. But we can certainly get some additional information from the MAPS office on their exact schedule on their construction. I don't know, actually, if they know that yet, since it hasn't been out to bid.
Yeah,
Yes.
The bid specifications and the drawings for the bid. The bid's going out in the late August. Requires the contractor to complete the maintenance facility track by October of 17. So that's an early completion milestone for the contractor. There's two other early completion milestones, which is the Hudson track by December of 17 and the Bricktown Loop by March of 18. So that you have the Bricktown Loop to run the testing of the vehicles, even though they're finishing up the rest of the track. So the bid schedule for the contractor is set under the bids that are going out.
Okay.
Do we know how the first streetcar will be delivered? Is it delivered by truck or?
Truck. Yeah, truck.
Okay. And then the next question, as you've already mentioned, is where will we store it until we can begin testing it out?
If you have a place in mind, you might suggest
We're taking
it.
suggestions.
Yeah. I'm sorry I don't. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the RFP and authorize the administrator to advertise and proceed?
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. All right, thank you. Item G is the approval of the change order number 4 to the contract with Downey Construction, LLC for project MB 1308, the tenant build-out Phase 2 for the Arts District parking garage. Corey.
Good morning again. Change order 4 for the build-out Phase 2 consisted of a moisture evaporation reduction system. Basically, when we went in to lay carpet, we found that the concrete slab had too much moisture in it, so we had to get rid of that moisture so that the carpet could adhere. That added 7 days to the project and just over $3,200. Overall, the project has come in at 3.86% over budget, totaling just over $28,000. Some of that will be reimbursed by the tenants that are moving in right now that started this week. They asked for enhancements that weren't originally designed, such as the side lights to the glass doors and some other features. So we will be getting some of that $28,000 back. Again, tenants started moving in this week, so we'll see a lot of delivery trucks the remainder of this week and next week.
I think there was a moving truck down there this morning when we came.
I hope they weren't parked in anybody's parking space.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about item G? If not, is there a motion to approve the change order number 4?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Item H is the approval of the contract with Central States Thermo King for for air conditioning repair parts and repair services for buses and vans. Jason?
Yes, this last item is contract to be able to perform repairs and order parts for our air conditioning systems on all of our fixed route buses, our paratransit buses. Our most recent contract expired at the end of fiscal year 16. As you can see there, we advertised for bids on May 5th, May 11th. We received one responsive bid, and it was from Central States. We recommend awarding a 3-year contract with 2 one-year renewals to Central States Thermo King.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Yeah, this time of year. That's right. Okay, moving on to ratifications of claims and payroll for the period of June 1st through June 21st, 2016. Are there any questions or comments?
Move approval.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Okay. Our financial reports. Jason?
Thank you. Looking at our financial reports, starting on page 2, we'll just start with a look at our transportation operations. Again, this report is reflective of 11 months of the fiscal year, so ending May 31st, 2016. So through 11 months of the fiscal year, you can see, looking at our operating revenues, our fare box revenue continues to be above target. A couple of other revenue items I wanted to mention is looking at our federal grants. You'll notice we're at about 92% of what we had projected or where we had expected to be through 11 months. It's a combination of 2 things, really. One is, as we've mentioned before, it's a reimbursement grant, so if we have less expenditures, we draw less in our federal reimbursement. Our expenses have been down, as you'll notice. They're under budget through 11 months of the year. The other item impacting the federal grant draw was the holiday in May, the Labor Day holiday there. Memorial Day. We actually ended up processing our draw about a week before the month ended in order to be able to have the funds hit our bank account by the end of the month. So it reflects basically about 3 weeks worth of reimbursement for May rather than 4. So a couple of outliers there. Looking at the City of Oklahoma City General Fund support that we receive, you'll notice we're $1 million under budget. That's when we looked at our financials last month, as you'll recall, we were at $500,000 under budget. So due to primarily the savings we've seen in fuel, we've been able to reduce the amount of support we need from the general fund, and so have reduced that by $1 million for fiscal year 16. Looking at our operating expenditures on the transit side, you'll see where the majority of our savings are coming from. As I've described before, we have a considerable amount of savings in personal services due mainly to vacant positions that were carried through a large portion of the fiscal year. I am pleased to report that we have all of our bus operator positions full at this time, so we would expect the next year's budget to start a little bit tighter than the one did this year, but that's a good thing to have those positions filled. And then also you'll notice the fuel budget, we're at about 46% of what we had actually estimated just due to the decline in fuel prices. So even with the reduction in the payment from the general fund, you'll notice that our revenues are through 11 months of the year are still in excess of our expenditures. So we're in good shape. Looking at the next page, page 3, looking at our parking enterprise. A couple of items I'll point out on the operating revenue section. You'll notice our monthly contract revenue. We're still over budget at 102.8% of what we had projected. I did want to point out that's down slightly from what we looked at last month when we were actually about 5% over budget. So we continue to see, some small declines in our monthly contract parkers, and that's being reflected obviously in our revenues. I did want to mention that event parking, you'll notice, is essentially on budget at 99.4%. Last month we were at 87%, and I think I had mentioned that we had expected to get closer on that event revenue projection by the time the year ended, and so we're gaining a lot of ground, and it looks like we're going to finish on budget for event revenue. Looking at our operating expenditures in terms of the percent of budget, pretty much comparable to what I had discussed and shared with the trust last month, so not a lot of changes there. Again, looking at our operating income, our revenues to date through 11 months are $1.9 million in excess of our expenditures. So again, very strong financially on the parking side through 11 months. Next page, page 4, looking at our river cruises operation. I'll point out basically one revenue item, and that's our general fares. You'll notice our general fares are at about 88% of what we had projected. Last month when we looked at this budget, we were at about 97% of our projections. So you look at the river ridership report, and we still continue to do very well. I mean, we're having a record year in terms of ridership. And so my hat's off to Jeannie and HMS and everything they're doing to support that ridership. The fact is our revenue estimate was simply higher than what's coming in, but ridership is still very strong. And then if we looked at, I'm sorry, I had one other thing to point out. On ferry contract operations, you'll notice that amount there. Last month, we were showing about $46,000 of savings in ferry contract operations. That amount has declined to about $6,500 through 11 months. I did want to mention that this financial actually has 12 months of the payment we make to HMS Global. So we don't anticipate these amounts to change very much at all when we look at the June financials. So we'll be back in a position of probably reflecting about $50,000 of savings in that line by the end of the year. That's the ferry contract operations that you see under the operating expenditures head. And then with the Spokie's bike share, again, not a lot of significant change from the previous month. To date, our revenues are in excess of our expenditures by about $24,000. And so with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on the financials.
Jason, under the parking, is our parking operators at 11 months? Have we paid them for 11 months? Is that the reason why that's at 89%?
No, actually, thank you for pointing that out. The parking operator is actually through 10 months. We've been, and as we had mentioned during the last meeting, we're really kind of a month behind on how we budgeted those payments versus what's actually being paid. And the primary reason for that is we're actually asking for a lot more documentation from Republic when they submit their invoices. It's taking longer to review that, and we're not always making that last docket to get them paid. We have adjusted that in our FY17 budget, though. We'll account for that timing issue, so it should be more reflective as to the budget will align more with when the payments are actually being made.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the financials? Is there a motion to receive the financial reports?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, going on to our program reports, our transit system report. Kevin?
Mr. Vice Chairman, trustees, good morning. Thanks for having us. I'd like to point out 4 issues or 4 items, comment briefly on 4 items from the May 2016 monthly transit report: safety, ridership, on-time performance, and our effectiveness when compared to our year-to-date report card. I also have to ask your permission or your forgiveness for a couple of errors that are in the report in front of you. One was in the number of preventable accidents, and the other is in the percentage difference between our on-time performance over the couple of Mays. I also would like to briefly touch on the modern streetcar update. We were responsible for 6 preventable accidents during the month of May, 1 which resulted in 0 damage. The other 5 resulted in slightly over $4,000 worth of damage. We have a 3-month rolling average of 6.33 preventable accidents per month, and we were involved in 4 non-preventable accidents during the month of May. Ridership, I'm pleased to report that we surpassed the 3 million passenger trips milestone in May, which was 1 month earlier than we did the previous year. If you take a quick look at the ridership slide, you'll see that we barely exceeded less than 1% the number of riders May over May. And I was puzzled by that, and then I took a closer look, and I remembered that even though last May was record rainfall and 12 bad weather days, the ridership during the day was very strong, including one day that was 14,000 passengers in May 2015, which I believe is more than any other day. So we're slightly over it, but it was a good performance. Year to date, we have achieved an overall cumulative growth of fixed route trips of 4.1%, which is kind of in that sweet zone. I wish it were a little higher, but more than 5% would be difficult to keep up with. We've discussed link service. It continued to decline May over May. We went from 46 passengers to 36 passengers, which is a decline of 22% in our link service. Our new night service, as you can see, increased on a nightly basis from 333 to 341, which is barely over 1%, but the devil is in the details. The existing or the former routes, the 23 and the 11, barely increased, less than 1%. However, the new routes, the 5 and 13, increased substantially by 9.5% average month over month. Our on-time performance for May was 66.5%, which is a 2.6% decrease compared to May 2015, but it is a mild increase from the previous month. Now we're working on this, and one of the things that's happening today that will assist us in that, it'll actually do 2 things. It will assist in the on-time performance, but it also will assist in elevating the awareness of our dedication to the ADA persons who will be standing alone as opposed to having everyone that we will stop for. And we're going to be very generous, by the way. Don't tell the public, but for the next couple of weeks, we will pull over and if the people are in a safe area that are riding the fixed route, and remind them and hand them a little thing saying that they can only do that a couple more times before that will pick them up. But we're going to be very, very generous on that. Our bus stop policy is really going to help with that. To our report card, I'll just repeat, or I will state the percentages. Our number of passengers per service hour, we're at 95% of year-to-date attainment goal. Number of passengers per operating day were in excess of 99%. On-time bus arrivals were at 88% of our goal. Number of miles driven between road calls were at 126%. I'd just like to say that with the condition of our buses and the heat and the conditions, those guys on Monday, for instance, or Tuesday, for hours the electricity was off in the morning, and those guys struggled in the incredible heat and the heat that went on, and no light, and they made lineup, which was no mean feat. Number of accidents per 100,000 miles were at 174%, which is not good. Number of passenger claims were at 77%. I'll be pleased to answer any questions with regards to that, and then I'll swing into the brief modern streetcar update.
Any comments or questions? If not,
Thank you very much.
We'll go on to the modern streetcar.
Just a couple of points. Mr. Gustafson, we're so glad he's here. He covered most of the happenings. I will say that on June 17th, staff and MAPS traveled down to Dallas to view and actually kind of almost do everything but operate their modern streetcar, which is a Brookville, which is just like ours, so that we could identify the preferences that we're going to want to incorporate when they manufacture our car, which will be somewhat different. The second thing is that we met last week, staff met last week with the largest American provider of streetcar services, including in Kansas City and a couple of other places, which at the completion of that, staff has met with just about every capable provider in the world that will be a bidder. There might be another one, but we've met with everyone else. With your permission, I'd like to just make a brief comment about the heroism and dedication and effectiveness of our employee and the police department recently. Our employee, John Mobley, incredibly, he's the captain of that bus. He got everyone off the bus, including in a safe fashion, and he was the last one off like a good captain. And I can tell you that it was a very difficult situation, and the police department performed very heroically and effectively, and we are eternally grateful.
Any comments or questions?
Just a quick item on the transportation report. I can't remember if it was mentioned, but you were provided a copy of the report with the corrections on accidents and the other. Okay, just to make sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Okay, the long-range plan report, Larry.
Sure. Today I only have two things to say, a little bit about the Smart Growth America grant regarding transit-oriented development, and then a little bit about transit's connection with public health. In terms of progress on that transit-oriented development workshop grant, the TOD grant, we're going to wind up having workshops on Tuesday, August the 30th, and one of them will be in the evening for neighborhood leaders, citizens, and others to actually hear, basically a lecture of sorts for maybe an hour, but also participate at tables to try to imagine, a more transit-oriented Classen Boulevard and Northwest Expressway. And that grant also is supposed to help address transit-oriented development around the Santa Fe Intermodal Hub as well. And so we think this will be a good activity, a way to try to gain some traction around this idea of land use and transit, and even this idea of bus rapid transit perhaps going out northwest. This week we actually had a call with 7 different entities, including the Oklahoma City Alliance for Economic Development and the Oklahoma City Housing Authority, and some others to basically talk about some of the topics that we need to explore, and so that they could be better prepared when Smart Growth America comes to town. And then the Aubrey Hammondtree, the planning director, was great at the Monday Urban Land Institute luncheon. We had about 80 or 90 people there to talk about Plan OKC, and she mentioned the Smart Growth America TOD workshops, and there was a lot of questions about transit in the future, and even City Manager Jim Couch was there, and he answered some questions as well, all very, very positive and supportive about the future of transit and the importance of funding. So that was good. The second item, be very brief. Embark's always had a lot of different connections and ways to support public health in the community. And this past month, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation came to Oklahoma City to interview a panel of people that would like to be a part of a public health leadership program. So Embark helped with that process. And if selected, that team is definitely going to take an interest in trying to promote improved public transportation as there are a lot of connections to improving public health. So with that concludes my 2 points.
Okay. Any questions for Larry? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our parking system program report. Corey?
In comparing May 2015 to May 2016, unfortunately, we have a 524 reduction in monthly parkers. we've seen that impact our revenue. Our vacancy rate in 2015 May was negative 12.2%. Now we're at negative 0.1%. Overall operating revenues for May 2016 was $589,000 plus dollars. May 2015 was $731,000. We're currently at 100% selling of our monthly parking. Obviously, we want to increase that. I would like to state it appears that we may have lost all the parkers that we're going to lose for the time being. Any questions?
Any questions or comments? No, thank you. Okay. Our marketing, customer relations, and technology report. Michael?
Good morning. Just a handful of items I'd like to share with you. We've got a few events coming up that are related to some of the initiatives that we've discussed in previous months. The first is the Cessation Health Fair that we're hosting for our customers. That'll be July 14th at the Transit Center from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. We've got several partners who are working with us to provide assistance in developing quit plans and just other ways to cope with not being able to maintain their habit at the transit center or around our facilities. We also are participating in a health fair or open house with the Oklahoma City Community Health Department on the south side at one of their locations also on that day, later in that evening. We'll be set up similar to like an open street event, and we'll have a bus there and handouts and hopefully introducing new folks to our system and to the services we provide. That's from 4 to 8 p.m., and I can give you the exact location if you're interested. And then on July 15th, we have our Free Fair Friday. Those have been going well, and we continue to see small little stories on social media about, I'm giving it a try today. They're always fun. We try to reach out to them and ask them to give us feedback. I'm learning from their perspective, having been a first-time user of our system, and we continue to capture those stories and hope to turn those around and share those with everyone later. Just a couple of items we've been working on. As Jason had mentioned earlier, that we have been working very hard on many of the items related to the streetcar, including branding, but also just system prep. A lot of decisions have to be made now, and that will affect what happens tomorrow. We also are working on the relaunch of the Spokies bikes and the stations coming up, and so there's quite a bit of design work that has to go into play in order to make those happen. And they're, again, looking, I believe, at an August launch date, and that's also including a website will have to be restructured to handle that membership differences there. We also wanted to point out in the report, we had a record month in May for our Road Scholars program. And again, our Road Scholars program is one where we provide field trip transportation to our public schools and or educational groups. And we had over 240, exactly 247 participants just in the month of May. And we've seen that grow as more awareness has become available to the teachers and schools and the principals. And we have a good time planning that, and we always love to hear back from the teachers that take the trips, and they've reported good experiences. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about the report or any of the work we're doing.
One question. Are those Road Scholar trips, are they on our normal fixed routes?
That's correct. They're on our regular fixed route. They ride with whoever else is on the bus. They travel to the bus stop, and so it's definitely an educational process. We give them passes also so that they understand and learn how to use the pass. And so we see this as an investment, and we provide this as a free service to those classes that register to do that. And we see that as an investment in teaching people how to use public transportation.
What about summer programs?
It can go, it's a full year program, so it's not restricted just to a certain time of the year.
Obviously, May is your busy month.
That is a busy month. They're trying to fill, I think, end-of-year schedules with things, and it's a great opportunity to get the kids out of the classroom. And we also have another one coming up where there's some of the recreation centers around with our Parks and Recreation Department that are going to be utilizing the same service to introduce kids to the service as well.
That's good. Any other comments or questions? No? Thank you very much.
Oh, hey, one moment. I would like to personally attest to the Rhodes Scholar program. As many of you know, I teach over at Jefferson Middle School, and we were part of those 78 participants. And I want to thank Cotpa for their dedication to that program. My students hadn't taken a field trip since the 6th grade, and they were in the 8th grade when we went on that field trip in May. And to your point about the fixed route, it was an educational component. It was as simple as teaching them, here are the 2 bus routes closest to our school, your neighborhoods, and then hopping on those buses. Most of those kids had never been on a city bus or any sort of public transportation before. And we rode down here. They got a lovely tour of City Hall, which was, again, first time any of them had ever been in City Hall. Councilman Greenwell's chief of staff, Debbie Martin, gave them a tour, so did Mayor Cornett, board member Steve Hill. They learned about the history of this building, and it coincided with history they were learning in the classroom. And that was just a remarkable connection for them. Things were no longer abstract and textbook, but very real life. It was a pleasure to be able to be a part of connecting them to the city. We had lunch in the Myriad Gardens. We had ice cream and pie in the Plaza District, and this was all by bus. And that's all they talked about for the last 2 weeks of school was that trip. So again, I just want to thank Cotpa for their dedication to that program. It was a treat to be on that, on those buses with a bunch of teenagers. I never thought I'd say that, but
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, the Oklahoma River Cruises and Spokies report.
Just a couple of comments on the River Cruises report. As I'd mentioned earlier, the season is off to a great start. Jeannie's mentioned it, and I just echo the comments. In fact, we're actually experiencing record ridership on the ferry service. You can look at the first chart in your report there, the ferry service riders per month, and you'll notice that in May alone, we had nearly 1,500 trips, up considerably from our last regular May, which was in 14, because as we know, May of 15 was virtually no service. But anyway, up considerably. So we just continue to do well with ridership. Even on the charter side of operations, we hit 10 charters in May compared to 7 in May of 2015. So I'm looking forward to continued good season with the river cruises. And then also on the Spokies program, we continue to be on track to relaunch that service at the end of the summer, and looking forward to getting the new bikes out into the community for our customers to experience and try out. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
No questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion to receive our program reports? Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Okay, are there any comments from our trustees? James? No. Okay. Kay? No. David?
Oh, thank you.
Jason? No. Okay. Oh, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move for adjournment.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes. Happy 4th of July.